Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Finding Focus. And I especially want to welcome my guest today, Ellen Craine. Ellen and I met, it's been a little over a year now. We'll
Little
talk
over a
about
year.
we'll
Yep.
talk about that. And we have just developed such a great friendship over this past year. And so I wanted to basically invite her over for coffee, even though she doesn't live here in Hawaii. She lives in Michigan. And so, but it's great with technology that we can get together like this. So, welcome, Ellen. And I'm going to, we're going to get to know you and do an introduction for you as we have this conversation. But I'm so happy to be able to connect with you this
Me
way.
too. Yeah, me too. I feel very, very blessed that, now what is it, 5 hours, a time change that we still can connect like this. It's so fun. Love
I,
it.
I know. I love it that this is so good that we've been able to stay connected like this,
Yep.
especially since, we met. We met, we're just, for our listeners, Ellen and I, whenever we get together, we just happen to start talking and have these great conversations around a multitude of different topics. And then we'll say to each other, oh, we should be recording this and sharing these tips out for everybody else. So we just decided to get together and do it and hit the record button today. So we welcome you to our little coffee chat today and invite you to, be a part of the conversations by, leaving comments in the podcast episode. So anyway, Ellen, welcome. So we're going to talk about how we met at that. But first of all, I want to just give you a chance to introduce yourself because I think you're just the most amazing, wonderful person that I ever could have connected with.
Oh, I feel the same way about you, Kathy.
We have this love fest going on.
We have this love fest going on. Yeah. So, geez, I guess, gosh, like about me, huh? Okay. So I guess I can just start with like a little bit about my professional background and then I'll give you a little bit of my personal history. And yeah, so I started out, I guess, once the degrees were done, although I kind of bounce all over the place, which is kind of, this whole idea of finding focus, right? I was thinking about like our conversation today and like just like what my life has been like. And I remember like being an undergrad and I started off pre-med. And it was at a time when, well, actually I should even go back, like in high school, I wanted to be an architect. And it wasn't okay to be an architect because I was a woman and there were no like female like architects at the time, right? So then I go to undergrad and I'm pre-med. And because my parents basically were telling me I had to do some professional degree, I either had to go to medical school or something. But I found, I don't know what it was. I think I just love the idea of helping people and like helping people. And this is like a mixed word, but helping people heal, but like from the medical sense at that point, I didn't know a lot of things that I know today. Talk about finding focus, right? And then somewhere along the way, it just didn't feel like that was the exact way I was supposed to help people. Though I sometimes wish that I still would have done it. So that's an interesting conversation in and of itself. So I went and got my bachelor's in social work. But that wasn't considered a professional degree. So I went to law school.
Such an underachiever you are.
Right? And then I made it through law school and I was doing a lot of work with domestic violence shelters, and a lot of the clients that I was working with as a student attorney, there was domestic abuse involved. And so I thought, oh my God, I can't help these people with the law. The law's no good. I was like frustrated and it just didn't quite feel right. So then I went and got my master's in social work and I did that, but I spent a lot of time struggling with like how to pull it all together. Right. And so I did custody avails for a while. I got trained. I was a divorce and family mediator. I got trained and was a parenting coordinator and I did okay for a while, but then it just sort of kept feeling like something was missing. So then I went and I started it before my husband got sick and then I had to put it on hold and then he passed away. And then I went ahead and got a integrative health coach certificate. And I thought I found my calling, Kathy. Like, I really thought I found my calling. But then somehow that just wasn't enough either. It just, I don't know, like something was missing, right? So then I went and got certified as a Waldorf teacher. And I had started it while my husband was alive, but I finished it after. So yeah. And so now I find myself once again really thinking about like how to use what I have to really be, for me, it's all about being like of service to others,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah, so I mean, I did well, like with my social work stuff. I now have like a whole pillar in my business where I do social work ethics consultations and I do a lot of training for social workers around ethics, things like that. And I love that. Like, I'm really passionate about it. But lately, oh my gosh, Kathy, lately I've really uncovered this whole other pillar, which is like combining my health coaching, my Waldorf education, bring, like gatherings and just other ways to connect and nurture. And I don't even call it healing. I call it like, I don't know, I look at it as ways to support and to
Mhm.
build community and to build connection. Because I just think that is probably the most important thing. I'm really, really finding that it's connection and community,
And don't
you
you find
know?
that that's really, I think people are really craving that now, especially since what we went through when we were forced not to have that connection a few years
Yeah.
ago. I think
Yeah.
the whole pendulum is swinging the other way now. That people are craving that deep connection.
And
Um,
I
mm,
know that I think you and I might have talked about it on another, call that you and I had, but I really feel like COVID really did a number where I can go out and I can do things and I can make connections and I can go to the grocery store and stuff like that. But I still feel some sense of going out and really truly getting connected to people is really hard still. And so I figured if it's hard for me, it must be hard for others. And I just want to try to find a way to help, bridge that gap.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so yeah, so that's kind of like a little bit about me. I don't know, like how much, like, yeah, is it another conversation to talk about me personally? And, I guess I would say one of my like passions is, well, gardening, nature. I mean, I just am like, I don't know, I'm just, like, fascinated by all of it, and
And
I
I
love that.
love that. I love the discussions we've had about the gardening aspect. And I find that just such a totally, I don't wanna say opposite because it's all integrated with who you are, but what another layer to explore because the gardening to me, obviously it's earthbound, it's grounded, it's soft.
Mm,
I mean, I think about plants and trees and nature. It's so
right.
unscientific.
It's so unscientific, and yet I'm sure there's science in there somewhere, but for me, it's more of like this feeling like I get giddy, like when I see the deer when I'm on a walk, or like if I see the rabbit, or like a couple weeks ago, I'm not sure exactly how long it was, maybe a couple weeks ago, when a skunk was in my yard and my dog and the skunk went nose to nose, and I kind of shrieked. And the skunk went away, thank goodness, without causing any damage, right? And I was able to get the dog away. But then what was interesting was that literally I felt this urge to come inside and to learn and to read about skunks and like the spirit, of the skunk. Like, why? Like, I've been in this house for 10 years. Not once have I seen a skunk up close and
Wow.
personal like that. And this
Wow.
was a big skunk. So I was fascinated. What does it say in terms of ritual, the spirituality of like, why did that skunk show up in my life at that particular time?
And what did it say if you wanna share?
Uh,
Sure.
honestly, I would have to pull my book, but really it was kind of like about like a curiosity and like wisdom. And
Okay.
yeah, it was just fascinating. And I was very curious about this animal. If I wasn't worrying about it spraying me or my dog, I would have been even more curious about it. And the fact that it's nocturnal, like why at that moment, 10
Okay.
o'clock at night, was they literally like sitting on the edge of the grass to my driveway staring at us.
That is
Um,
so
it
wild.
was just wild. Yeah. So, yeah, it just has like this almost as if I know that there's this other, I don't know what to call it, this other like level almost. And
Mhm.
I can't even figure out like the real earthly word, but this other level to who we are, right? That,
Absolutely.
right? So like you and I have talked is, I'm very, logical brain given my training and my
Mhm.
background. And I'm like now understanding more of like where it came from. It was like survival, kind of thing for me. But then there's this whole other part of me that is so like Mother Earth,
Yes.
Mother Nature, Earth Angel. And it's kind of, and this was the thought that I was thinking about. It's like, really, aren't all of us really eclectic? But we just don't allow ourselves,
That's it.
right, to like acknowledge and to, I don't know what the word is, lean in to these
Lean
other
into
parts of ourselves.
I think that's where so many people are, and that's why so many people are just stuck because they're
Mm-hmm.
not allowing themselves to, or they've had all these different layers that have just been built up from childhood, education, teen years, young adulthood, and society has just imposed, okay, this is the way you're going to have to do this. This is the way you're going to have to think. It's all very logical.
Right, 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 right. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I lose hours, literally. I mean, it's funny, not funny. I'm in the garden or I'm out even just clipping bushes. I lose hours. I lose track of time. And I'll get like a phone call or a text from my kid. Hey, mom, where are you? Because I didn't realize like how long I'd been outside.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love it.
I
Love it. I
used to
love
do
it.
we used to do a training when I was with a different group, a different organization. We used to help do training to help people discover what their purpose is. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the exercises that we would ask people to do is, what is it that you could do for hours and just lose track of the time? And that really helped them focus in on what is it that they really love to do. And then that helped them lead into, okay, let's think about this in terms of, what is your purpose? Why do you enjoy that? So that's interesting that you said, yeah, you could just get lost for hours. I know there's things that I could just get lost into hours.
Right.
You look up
I
and
Right. I know. I also wonder if it's kind of like this is what was just going through my mind as I was listening to talking was this whole idea of almost like going back to childhood. If I could, when I was a child, what would I do for hours on end? I was one who was like making the mud pies and, stuff like that, or even now. And I suspect that's why I ended up going, and getting my certificate in Waldorf teacher training and doing some substitute teaching and stuff like that for a while was because when you're doing some of the activities, it's involving all of your senses. And
Mhm.
it is so easy to get, and that's what you want to do. You want to immerse yourself.
Those who don't know about the Waldorf teaching, can you just give a little background on that? Because I'm not 100%. I mean, I've heard the term over the years, but I'm not
Right.
entirely clear on what that involves.
Yeah, so Waldorf education was started like way back in the 19s by a gentleman by the name of Rudolf Steiner. And originally he started it out of a request from the Waldorf Astoria cigarette company.
Mm,
And they wanted some kind of an education for the parents, like for the adults that were working in the cigarette factory. And as I understand it, that the adults were like, oh, this is, we're too old for this, do it for the kids. And so what he did is he based it on all of his work with children who were what we would call today neurodivergent.
okay.
They had some kind of a learning challenge or whatever, and he was trying to figure out how to help them learn and be productive in society. And so Waldorf education is really very beautiful in that it works with children from preschool all the way through high school, for sure. And, integrating mind, body, spirit, but it's
Mhm.
also things like integrating. So like when you're studying, let's say, reading, you might also be learning art at the same time. So it's integrating different disciplines so that it's a more holistic approach.
Okay. Okay.
All
I
the
love it.
kids learn a musical instrument. All the kids take choir. All the kids learn a foreign language. And every school is different what foreign language, they teach. I was an assistant in the first grade, and one of my things to do, which I just love, is with these little first graders doing little like hand sewing projects. So and then that's the other thing, children go into first grade closer to the age of 7. Whereas in a public
Oh,
school, they might be in first grade by the time they're 6 and in kindergarten by the time they're 5. Waldorf school is a little bit different in that, they start the kids in the academics, a little bit earlier, but it's all integrated learning. So somebody might even, so I was doing these hands. So sorry, lost my train of thought for a minute. But by the time kids are in first grade, they're starting to lose their teeth. So one of the sewing projects I did with the first graders was how to make a little tooth fairy pillow so that they
oh,
could take their teeth as they lost them and put it under their pillow so that when the tooth fairy visited them, there would be a place for their, little prize or present, for losing from the tooth fairy, their little present from the tooth fairy for losing their tooth. But then also too, I taught painting. And it wasn't like painting what you would think of. It was things like just getting comfortable with the color yellow, for example, and just getting that color on the paper and what emotions does it evoke? And not really with these little ones are we evaluating all that. But that's really like the methodology. And then it might be something like, okay, you're going to go around the room and you're going to find 5 things that are yellow, or we're going to go outside and you're going to look for 5 things that are yellow so that they really understand what yellow is. And you touch it and you feel it and you might even taste it,
uh-huh.
depending upon, what it is. Anyway, so that's a little bit about Waldorf education. Does that
Okay.
help?
Yes, that does, because based on some of the other discussions that we've had about some of the things, the offerings that you're going to be doing now that don't have to do with that more, what do we call it, the logical side,
Right.
that sounds now I get why that calls to you as well when you're talking about these hands-on projects that you're going to be developing for um, people to attend. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I'm
love that.
excited about it. I'm excited about it because it's allowing all of us in some ways to go back to, that child that we all have and to nurture it and to get support from it, right? Because I think you and I both believe the same thing that we all have the answers with inside of us. And
Absolutely.
there's different ways to kind of pull it out. But I really believe, like, for example, like with these gatherings that I'll be doing and then eventually retreats and other programming, they're all going to start with some kind of a meditation
Mhm.
or some kind of a, opening verse. And then everyone's going to get a journal.
Mhm. Now you're
S-
talking about live gatherings. I know that
Live gatherings. Yeah, I'm
I
still
know.
trying to figure out how to piece together a virtual thing.
So now, yeah, because I know so many people, when we think of gatherings now, it's almost like, okay, we could do this. Everybody assumes it's going to be virtual. But what I love
Correct.
about what you're going to be doing is that you are talking about a live, in person, good old fashioned get together.
You got it. Yeah, I am just feeling so called to do that because it kind of goes back to the beginning of our conversation, right? This idea of creating community and
Hmm.
connection,
Hmm.
right? And it doesn't have to be around anything like heavy.
Yeah.
We just have to connect. And so for me, I'm not looking for anybody per se to walk away with any great insights.
Yeah.
What I believe is that the people who are supposed to show up, they're supposed to be in the gathering when it happens, will be there. And everybody's going to take away what they need to take away, including the practical things like whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's painting or, hand sewing or candle making or, whatever it is that we're doing. Even if it's just like a nature walk and doing something around that, everybody's going to take away from it what they are supposed to take away from it,
Hmm. I
and I just really feel like in my soul that this is the right time to launch this.
Yeah, and you've already gotten some great feedback from folks that are
Yeah, it's
women
pretty
that you
cool.
have mentioned this to, that they're
Yeah.
excited for this upcoming gathering that you're going to be doing. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I
know,
love.
it's pretty cool. Like I wasn't sure, because I have my own like what's the word? Inner child critic or like my own self-doubt like, what do they call that? What's that phrase?
Oh, I know because I just went through it myself. What is it? Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Yes, yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah. So for anybody who's listening, yeah, you know the imposter syndrome. We've probably all been through it. Like, who am I to be offering this?
Right,
Am I any good to be doing this? So,
right.
what I think Ellen and I are both telling everybody, get over it. Get over yourself.
Right, right, right. Just do it. Well, and the other thing too, and this is the other thing that I've learned, and it doesn't mean that it's always easy, but if you never ask, if you never put it out there, it's always going to be a no.
Right. So how did you because I know this whole gathering concept, we've only been talking about it for just a you've had it, I think, in the back of your mind, but it's just finally starting to come to fruition. So
Uh-huh.
how are you when you're just kind of chatting with your neighbors or whoever that you've just kind of given this exploratory info to and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this." What is it that you're telling them?
Well, I'm telling them that, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing, and I'm giving them some specifics, what I'm thinking of doing and when I'm thinking of hosting it. And then I will just say, what do you think? And and I tell them what what my like structure for the day, is likely to look like. And they're like, oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. And who would have thought? But, I have to say, Kathy, it's all started with a reading that I had with you. Do you remember, like, when you were telling me that you saw, like, a group of people sitting around a picnic table?
I remember that part. Now I always have to tell people when I do readings for people, I don't tend to I remember maybe a few highlights, but I don't
Mhm.
tend to remember the readings. So, yes,
But I
remind me of that, but yes, I remember
yeah,
that.
I think that's I mean, it probably was, like, percolating even before that, like, on a deeper level, but I don't think I got that picnic table scene out of my brain. And I just kept like marinating on it and massaging it a little bit. And I thought, well, does it have to be a picnic table outside? And what would that look like? What would I do around a picnic table? I mean, it just sort of, and then I would like drop it for a while, because I also know that if I like try to like get the answer, it's harder for it to come.
Isn't it come
Right.
right, right.
Yeah, and so I just knew that I sort of had to let it go, and I wish I could remember exactly what I was doing, but all I can say is, I remember hearing this. It's like a light bulb that went on, and it just sort of popped that, oh my gosh! And I think I've been saying to you all along, and to some other people, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something where I'm using my Waldorf education, but like for adults, right? So that's how it was born.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I remember doing another reading for you when we first started exploring who you are and what is it that you're supposed to be helping people with. And I just remember the garden theme came up so clearly. And
Right.
then you just sort of started running with that because you said, yeah, I love being in my garden. Right.
Well, and it was so interesting because I, in the beginning, thought I was supposed to do it one way, like one path. And then somewhere along the way, it was like, whoa, like, no, that is not the avenue with which to do it. And then this whole Seasons of the Soul came out. And it just started literally like the layers just started like,
Yeah.
lifting away. It was
That's what
just incredible.
I love it. That is something that I'm really big about telling people is to really helping people find their alignment, get into alignment because once you get into alignment with who you are and kind of get the head, heart and actions all going together, it just kind of explodes as you're experiencing right now because I truly believe yeah, you found what aligns with you,
And I don't know if you heard what you just said, but you just said your head, heart,
your actions.
and your actions,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like the same thing. Head, heart, hands, like in Waldorf, the hands
Oh,
are the
oh, yeah.
action. Isn't that interesting?
True. That's
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I know. Like fascinating. So to me, that tells me, like for me, I feel like that is the natural way of how we are supposed to be.
exactly, and when you're that way, you just you're like in flow. You just
Mm-hmm.
flows, and that's why I'm so you're not fighting against anything. You're not trying to swim upstream. It's like
Right.
the universe is saying, "Yes, you have found your flow, and now we're just going to help you stay in that stream, and the opportunities are gonna come to you, the right people, the right ideas, everything just starts coming." And it's such an amazing feeling.
It is, and that even just happened to me, yeah, within the past couple of days, and I did a bunch of work. I started a little bit of work on it yesterday, and it's more today, but, like, modifying my website. Like, I knew I needed to, like, make changes to my website, but I wasn't in flow yet, and so as the seasons of the soul thing started to unfold, oh my gosh, the creativity around my website started to unfold.
Yeah.
And started to get easier to think of, and then the other thing I also had to remind myself, which I heard your voice in my head, is don't feel like I have to get it all done at once,
Right?
and just to sort of take my time and to go slow with it. And two, like I keep reading different things to make sure it is in alignment, with where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So, and it feels good. I mean, right now it feels really good.
See, and
So.
that's I think the key thing. A lot of people say, "Well, how do I know if I'm in alignment?" And it feels good.
Feels right. I would say it also feels light, almost like dancing. It just feels light and airy, for lack of a
See?
better way of putting it. Light and airy.
Okay, I'm gonna go into that same topic area because I get a lot of people who, I tell people, you have got to learn to trust your intuition. And then I get people who tell me, well, then, and I think you might have been one of them because you're that logical brain slash leaning into the intuitive side as well. So you're even better to
Right.
talk about this. But, I've been there. We've all been there. Some of us are still there. But it's like, how do I learn to know what is my just logical brain telling me something versus what is my intuition wanting to
Mhm.
and I think it really stems around learning to recognize that lightness. Would you agree?
Yeah, I really I would, because if it's heavy, if it feels heavy, it feels hard. If you're like really trying to pull at it, you're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I've seen myself in that space, and you've seen me in that space
Yeah.
where I've been really frustrated and it's like banging my head against the wall trying to get it to come out.
You were trying to get it done, and then the universe, as we were guiding you also, we had to tell you, Ellen, just stop, take a break,
Yeah,
relax a little bit.
absolutely.
And
And it
and it
was
did.
it took me a while. It was interesting to watch myself. It took me about a month to get to the place where I could take a break and
Mhm,
slow down and be open. Yeah,
mhm.
it took a while.
Yeah, so sometimes we just have to pay attention to those intuitive hits that say, "Just stop, take a break." You know,
Right.
we need you to slow down, and sometimes we don't wanna listen to that, you know?
Right, right. And if we don't listen to like the other signs, sometimes then we may bang our head against the wall or, bump our knee on the, dishwasher door, or, other
And
things may
you just
happen.
you just wanted to get something done. You felt like you were in this creative mode, and you wanted to get something tangible accomplished.
Yes. Ah,
And so you were just because I watched you, you just, like, pushing. I'm like, "Ellen, you just go, girl." It'll come around to her eventually, she'll get it. But it was like and so many of us wanna do that. We just feel like we have to constantly be creating or going or showing something to say that I'm being productive, when
mhm.
a lot of times we're just spinning our wheels rather than just saying, "You know what? Let me just take a little break and allow." And I think that's been the biggest lesson. Like the universe is telling me right now, I need to slow down and allow. So I'm doing that. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now that you've acknowledged us, we are going to show you some other things that you can work on. So for me, it's been like, okay, we have to take those hard lessons. Like you said, you were what was it? Running into you were hurting yourself.
Oh, I
And
like
that ended up running
literally.
into
Yeah, I had a Thursday where I bent down and I hit my head against the wall, and there was a couple of other mechanical things that were going wrong at my house, like all on the same day. And then I walked into the dishwasher, the door was down. I walked into that and hit my shin on it, and I literally said, what is it about this Thursday, where all this stuff is happening? I'm knocking on wood here. I'm very grateful I haven't had a Thursday or a day like that since I've gotten the message.
See, that's just it. I truly believe it. When we don't want to listen to the intuitive hits, then the universe just starts giving us bigger signs. It says, girl, slow down.
Right.
We're telling you. It's like, yeah, you had all of those things. Well, for me, this past week, I have had What? Well, I've had a hamstring injury that's kind of slowed me down, which I still thought, okay, no, I can go out and golf some more, but now it's just gotten so painful that I can't. And then on top of that, I've had an ear infection and then sinuses. I'm like, okay, the universe is just telling me, slow down, stop, take a break. And so I did for maybe 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, I did. And I made the decision, yeah, I've gotta just kinda slow down and just take it easy. So I've taken some of the golf outings off my schedule, and then the universe said, "Good girl. So now let's show you something else that you can work on." Because 'Cause I'm sitting here thinking, "Okay, I'm not golfing on Wednesdays or Saturdays anymore or some Mondays. What am I gonna do with my time? Because 'Cause I'm not out practicing." And I thought, "I'm gonna go crazy." Then the universe said,
Oh,
"Here's something else. Go back to this. Take a look at this." So they redirected me into another project, and I'm like, this feels so good. So
right, right. Does it feel light and airy?
absolutely. I'm like I say, it's that giddy.
Right, right. It's that giddy
It's that
feeling.
it's
Yes.
it's that
Yeah.
giddy feeling. So for anybody
Right.
who's curious, what am I doing? And well, talk more about it in another time, or you can catch up with me on social media. But I'm being called back to picking up my professional camera and doing professional photography again. Probably not so much like family portraits or things like that anymore, but I'm really getting into the more of the landscape photography that I really had done, but haven't done. Had done, but haven't done now in quite a few years. So I'm picking that back up and creating these images. And I'm like, this is so cool. It feels so good.
Great. No, and you're a phenomenal photographer, man. I remember just the beautiful landscape pictures that you took and even the people pictures that you took when we were on retreat. I don't remember if you were taking them on the first retreat that we were on together, but I know you for sure did it on the second
On the
retreat. I
second
don't think you
retreat.
had your camera the first retreat.
Yeah, I didn't. And even both of those,
Yeah.
I just had a cell phone. So I thought, gosh, just imagine what I could do if I got my
Yes.
professional lenses out and my professional camera out. So
Yeah.
I was just, kind of going through images on my other computer. And I thought, oh, those are really good.
They are. They're beautiful. I have some of them on my phone.
So, yeah, so I'm really excited to get back into that, but it's not like it's taking that's the other thing. It's all integrated and it's all alignment, so what I'm gonna be doing with the images now is actually going to be totally in line with the intuitive work that I'm doing, so
Right. Which
so
is so exciting. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see it.
yeah, I am excited for the unfolding for not what I'm doing, but also for the unfolding of what you're doing, because when I think about where we both were a year ago, going kinda digressing back to that, we met a little over a year ago at a
Yeah.
retreat. For those
Mhm.
who don't know, for me, that was the first retreat I had ever been to, any
Right.
any kind of retreat, and I'm like
Yep.
and the
Yep.
first night that I'm there, there was what, maybe a dozen no, maybe 15 women altogether there, and I didn't know a soul when I went to this, and I didn't even know really what I was doing there. And I remember the first night being gathered in circle, and I'm thinking, "What am I doing here? These are not my people. I wanna just go back to my room." And we're all in a big, beautiful house, but I just wanted to go back to my room and curl up and say, "I'm going home tomorrow because these are not my people." But within 20 minutes, I'm like, "I'm so with my people. These are who I need to be with. I get it now." So I don't know what your experience was like, but that retreat was a real turning point for
I mean, I think for me, I was open, I was curious. I think if I remember correctly, the first night was a sound bath, and I never, I had done a similar, but it'd been years since I had participated like in a sound bath. But I do remember, we must have talked before that retreat in some way, shape, or form. But I remember going over to you and making sure that you were okay because I think you'd already like let on. And I was petrified. I mean, I remember even like emailing the retreat host and saying, I can't do this. I can't come. I'm not going. I need a refund. And I'm really glad that I did because there are several of us, where we really developed really tight relationships, but even just the different activities that were there. I mean, I'd never been on a retreat either. I had done some of the things that were on this retreat, but to be able to be in a group of women and just be yourself. Like in a
True.
way, like I like have said to the host, I got to be a part of me that I don't get to be any other time,
Ah, yeah, beautiful.
you know? And one of the things that I've been really working on, and you've certainly been helping with me with that too, is just the idea of how do I integrate that?
Mhm.
How do I, and I think that's where the seasons of the soul also comes from, right? How do I integrate that? Because that was like I would think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I'm doing it from my perspective versus, an outside perspective of being like free, like, and that little girl who can dance and sing and just be playful and yet be there for other people
Mhm.
as well. And I think for me, that's what those retreats give me, like a glimpse out of this, like earth angel, mother nature, person, whatever that looks like, that I don't that's hard to feel like in the real, like back in my neck of the woods,
Yeah.
right? Because of all the old tapes, because of that imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just been all about, and it's a complex word, but it's a great word, this idea of integration.
Yes. It's really about integrating all of the parts of who we are,
Right.
being willing to let go. Because I know I came with a whole bucket of armor on, nobody was getting
Hmm.
in. Nobody was
Hmm.
getting in. And then, within that first gathering, that first evening, that sacred circle we were in that first evening, it's like, okay, the walls are coming down. We don't have a choice in this, but it was all beautiful. I did
It was all
all
beautiful.
all
Yeah.
beautiful, and the remaining, few days together was such a life-changing experience. Well, so much
It
so that both you and I went again to the next one 6 months later.
Exactly. I also think it's about, oh God, what was I thinking when you were talking? I was thinking that, oh, I know, for me, and I don't know how you felt, it was about being able to have a balance where it wasn't like I was going there for me, but I didn't want it to be about me, if that makes sense. But when you're doing some of the activities, it becomes about you, right? Because and you, Kathy, we were as individuals going through things. But I thought what one of the beautiful things of the retreat was, and I think you and I have done a fairly good job of maintaining this idea of we're there to get what we need, but also we're there to support others too. I mean, it really was about building community and connections,
Yeah.
and I just thought it was wonderful.
And learning to trust, that was one of the big things.
Learning to trust,
Learning to
yes.
trust, especially as women, because I had been in environments before where I had been backstabbed by women.
Mhm.
I'd worked with people I thought I was close with, and so that was part of the reason I was so closed off. It was like, I'm not sure, but then it was just such a great experience to be able to let the layers unfold, open, do the heart opening activities. It was just I can't say enough good things. So for people who are listening and are wondering, how do you find focus in your life? For me, and I think for Ellen the same way, it was finding that right connection, finding these opportunities that call to you and allow for you to find your alignment, to be able to open and to find your flow. So I know that over this last year, I think both of us have been able to find our flow.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And it's been fun. It's been fun doing it with you.
No, we get on these calls and say, yeah, that's what's so fun is that we just decided we've got to share some of the great insights that we've had. So as we wrap up for today, and probably this is not going to be the last conversation that we're going to have, either recorded or otherwise. But if you had one piece of advice or two pieces of advice, I don't care. You've always got such great wisdom. What
Aw.
would you want to leave with the people that are listening to this podcast today?
Well, I think a big takeaway is to learn to listen to your heart. We're all really good at the head work, right? But we're not always all good at listening to the heart and finding and I think you said it really. It's finding people that are going to be in alignment and that are going to support you. Even when you're feeling the imposter syndrome, they're still going to say, you've got this.
Yeah.
right? And so it like makes me think of like if you're in a group and there's somebody who's always like a Debbie Downer, for lack of a better way of putting
Yeah.
it, then the group and you're only as strong as the weakest link then. And so what you want to do is work on replacing, right? That negative energy, with something positive. And so if you're in one group and it feels more like it's a downer, it's pulling you down, then you know that that's not your right group. Even if you may love the people,
Yep.
right, that are in the group some of the time,
Right.
right? Continue to keep massaging and finding. I know that through this past year, I've made shifts in my circles. I haven't let go completely of anybody, right? But I'm just bringing more people in who have more of the energy that I'm seeking, which I think has really helped to lift me up and to be more in alignment with my life in general and where I want to go in terms of being in service to others.
What a beautiful way to put it. Absolutely. You have to be surrounded by like-minded people. I think
Yeah.
that's the only way that we can be. You can't just be this ship out on the ocean all by yourself. We need others. We need that connectedness that we talked about earlier.
And we're all eclectic. We all
Yeah,
have
we
different
are
parts,
eclectic.
right? We all have different parts to ourselves, and all parts deserve to be nurtured and loved.
Exactly. Exactly. What a beautiful way to finish today's episode. And this won't be the last conversation that we're going to have. So I want to thank Ellen for being here today. And for those of you who are listening, I hope you'll stay tuned and continue to listen to our podcast and add any comments on the reviews that we would be grateful for having. So, again, Ellen, thank you for being here, and we will continue to have these conversations. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you for having coffee with me again. I love it.
I love it.